there, this is Janice, and I know it may seem a little unusual to be recording this on a Saturday, but here during COVID times, every day is pretty much like every other day. So why not talk on a Saturday? So today's topic is processing information. Knowing your process is powerful. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but as far back as 334 BC, Aristotle noted that all children learn differently. Now, don't worry, I am not planning to give you a history lesson. I just find it interesting that making observations about how we learn has been happening for a really long time. And that's really important as an adult because whenever we go to gain new information, we already know a little bit about what does and doesn't work for us as far as trying to grasp that new information. What you may not know, though, is how powerful that information about yourself is, especially when you're navigating some type of life transition. Because when you're going through a life transition, there's new information to learn, new habits to develop, your life is shifting. And since people use various processing modalities, understanding and acknowledging the differences with the people that you either live or work with can really help when you're trying to communicate about setting up new systems. Not to mention the fact that it helps you during a slightly chaotic life transition. Now, you may have heard there are many theories and models when it comes to how we learn. There are multiple intelligences, and there are thinking styles, and there are cognitive styles. And I'm not even talking about the whole behavior, personality kind of stuff. But what I'm going to talk about today has to do with processing modalities, and it is a model that was developed by a colleague of mine, Denslow Brown, the founder of the Coach Approach. It is with her program that I gained my certified organizer coach credential. And because her work applies directly to the clients that I serve, it makes the most sense for me to use that model in sort of my everyday life. So I hope that you will be excited by what you learn because it is a little bit different. And again, the more we learn as we grow older, the more neural pathways. Oh, yeah, that's a different topic. We'll do that some other day. But what I am going to talk about is, first of all, the 5 sense-based processing modality. I don't mean senseless, I mean sense as in senses. So I'm going to use my little cards here, and we're going to see how well I do this. I should be getting better at it by now. So one of the senses that we often use is visual. Now, obviously, that's seeing things, but that's also when we're learning new information using things like charts or symbols or images. That may be one way that you or someone you know takes in information. Now, some people may use auditory a little bit more, obviously hearing, but this means that they may focus on listening more when they're learning new things, or these are people that really like books on tape. Now, before I go any further, I do want to say that I am not saying that everybody has only one way of learning new information. Usually it's a combination of some of these, and some of them may be stronger for you. Some of them may be a little bit weaker. You may use some more when you're learning one type of information than another. But I will tell you that it also really helps to know this when you are organizing or working on productivity habits. So, for example, with the seeing, my clients for whom the seeing visual is important, they are often people who like the same type of containers if we are organizing a larger space. They like the same kind of containers because they like that same look. I also have clients that they don't really care as long as the stuff is contained. They don't care if the containers are all different. So that's just one little way that I see it in some of the work that I do. As far as the auditory, it could be people who need signals for the passage of time. And maybe, for example, they like certain sounds that are timers or things of that nature. And maybe they really don't like other sounds and it really bothers them. Whereas other people are like, yep, it's a sound. Okay, I know I got to do something else. So I'm not going to do this for each of them because otherwise we'll be here for quite a long time. But let us move on to the next one. The next one is kinesthetic. Now, kinesthetic and tactile are not one and the same, even though you may have heard that. Kinesthetic is when you are moving your body, you're engaging your whole body when you're trying to learn something. So, this is when people may do something when they are learning something new. They may move, you may see them doing this or orienting. Often, these are people who do really well with spatial planning because that's just how their brain works when they're learning new information. So it's just how they then work in the rest of their lives when they're not learning new information. So again, we're not confusing tactile and kinesthetic, which means, of course, we do have to talk about the tactile processing modality. So this is obviously using your hands, touching things. It also includes people who write or doodle, and these are often people who want specific pens and pencils, the feel, the construction of them, the fatness or slimness, that all makes a difference to them. Even sometimes the surface can make a difference, what it feels like. Now, for some people with auditory, it might be how a pen or pencil sounds on the paper that helps or hampers their learning. So let's go to the next one, which is one you may not have heard about, but again, part of Denslow Brown's processing modalities, and that is taste and smell. So obviously how we respond to odor and to taste. So for example, there are some people that aromatherapy can help keep them focused. And there are others for whom aromatherapy would actually be the hugest distraction ever. So again, some people it works for some people, doesn't work for others. Also, if you think in terms of taste, some people, and actually smell too, if you think of people that really rely on caffeine or chocolate or things of that nature, they're responding to the cues in their taste and smell senses. All right, so those are the 5 that are the sense based. And now I'm going to go over the 4. It's sort of 4.5 or 5. You'll see in a minute. That are more information and environment based. And again, it's not like some people just do sense based and some do the new ones I'm going to talk about. It's a combination. And that is something certainly, if you are interested in knowing more, I'm happy to point you in the right direction for that. So let's talk about verbal. So verbal has 2 different parts to it. One is the oral part. Obviously, that is speaking. These are people who talk things out. Maybe people that talk to themselves too. No judgment here on that. But people who really like to verbally process. I am one of those. Sometimes I just need to have someone there to listen. I don't even necessarily need them to respond. Questions are helpful sometimes, but I'm not really looking for their input. I just need to hear it out loud, which also means that my cat sometimes is the person that I am talking out loud to try to process things. The other piece to this one is the written piece. So people who really read, who write, who journal. So list makers, those are all people who do really well with the verbal processing. And I know that a lot of my clients are verbal processors and they are thrilled when I tell them, make that observation, because up until I've spoken with them about it, they're thinking that there's something wrong with them, but there's not. That's just one of the best ways for them to take in and process new information. All right, the next one, the cognitive. So this is understanding. This is things like sequential thinking or black and white thinking. So just how some people use their brain more. Again, not that other people are using it less. That's probably the wrong way to put it. But the thinking aspect of learning new information is really important to them, and being able to, put it into, like I said, sequential thinking. So into an order is really helpful. All right. Intuitive. So this is sort of that spontaneous awareness, that inner voice. When you hear people say, "Oh, it's just it," it's a gut feeling. They can't explain why they might like one container over another, or one app over another, or anything of that nature. One sort of way we're doing coming through the door, putting stuff down. They can't necessarily tell me, but they can feel it. They can feel what's right for them and what won't work for them. So that's the intuitive processing modality. And then we have the emotional processing modality. So that's, using feelings or connections. People who really use the emotional one a lot, are they really value relationships. They often are also my most sentimental clients. And so again, it is very good knowledge, because when I'm working with them and want to be able to help them set up the systems and everything that they're working on, then I want to be able to do what's best for them and work with their areas of strength, rather than trying to help them learn something that in a way that they're not going to respond to. All right, so quick overview, but I don't want to hold everybody here for a long time. So let me just sort of start closing up by saying that really, when we are processing information in our environment, it's a combination of receiving information, interpreting that information, using that information, and then often we need to remember some of that information for some period of time. And that's a lot of work for our brains. And so far, I've only talked about neurotypical brains and not neurodiverse brains. There are even more factors to consider when we're talking about neurodiverse brains. And so that is a conversation for another day. But what I am talking about is that when you're struggling with some type of a life disrupting situation and you feel overwhelmed and uncertain what to do, you can only imagine how overloaded your brain feels about that. And that really is why I started up Life Transitions Organizing, because I wanted to empower people to navigate those life transitions associated with either brain or body based or autoimmune conditions. And I want them to navigate those with more control and a feeling of peace. All right, if you want to find out more, please, you can reach out via Facebook, or you can go to lifetransitionsorganizing.com and stay tuned, because I will have another topic for next week. I believe next week's topic is about that inside chatter that happens in your head. You have it, we all have it, and for some of us it's pretty predominant and it can drown out other things. So you can join me to find out a little bit more about that. Thanks so much, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.